The Volreni research vessel Quiet Dawn drifted through the dead star system. No one had come here in thousands of years. Ancient warnings carved into asteroids surrounded this place. The warnings were written in a language that no living species could read. Every spacefaring civilization knew one simple rule about this system: stay away. Yuna pressed her face against the observation window. Her skin glowed with soft blue light, the natural bioluminescence of her people. She was the lead archaeologist on this mission, and she had spent 40 years studying ancient mysteries. But nothing had prepared her for what she saw now. A planet hung in the darkness ahead. It was wrapped completely in a shell of black metal. The shell was smooth and perfect, with no seams or openings visible from space. It looked like someone had taken an entire world and locked it inside a box. "The readings make no sense," said Counselor Dreth. He stood behind Yuna, his long fingers trembling slightly. "The metal is absorbing our scans. We cannot see what is inside." Yuna turned to face him. "That is why we must go closer." Dreth's glow flickered with anxiety. The Volreni had ruled the galaxy peacefully for 6,000 years. They had solved every conflict through careful words and patient negotiation. Violence was something they read about in history texts, a primitive behavior that civilized species had left behind long ago. "The warnings exist for a reason," Dreth said. "Perhaps we should report our findings and let the Council decide." "The Council sent us here to investigate," Yuna reminded him. "We will investigate." The ship moved closer to the black shell. As they approached, Yuna noticed something strange. The metal was not natural. Someone had built this. Someone had wrapped an entire planet in armor. Her team found a spot where the metal seemed thinnest. They used cutting tools that could slice through starship hulls. The black metal resisted for hours before finally giving way. Yuna was the first one through the opening. She floated down through darkness until her feet touched solid ground. Her suit lights activated, and she gasped at what she saw. A city stretched before her. Massive buildings rose toward the metal sky. Streets and pathways connected everything in careful patterns. Vehicles sat frozen in place, covered in 10,000 years of dust, but the city was empty. No movement, no sound, no life. "This is impossible," Yuna whispered. An entire civilization, preserved perfectly. Her team spread out to explore. They found homes with furniture still arranged inside. They found schools with small chairs and learning materials. They found hospitals, markets, parks, and temples. Everything a society needed to function. And everywhere, they found the pods. The pods were made of white metal and clear glass. They lined the streets in neat rows. They filled every building. They covered every open space. Millions of pods. Billions of pods. Yuna approached one and wiped away the dust covering its glass surface. Inside, she saw a face. The being looked almost like a Volreni, but different. Its skin had no glow. Its body was thicker and more solid. Its face had expressions that Yuna did not recognize. "They are sleeping," she said. "All of them. An entire species, asleep for thousands of years." Dreth joined her, staring at the pods with growing fear. What kind of beings would do this to themselves? What were they hiding from? Yuna touched the pod gently. As her fingers made contact, something happened. Lights flickered on across the city. Ancient machines hummed to life. A voice spoke from hidden speakers, using words that no one understood. The pod in front of Yuna began to open. She stepped back quickly as steam hissed from the seams. The glass lid rose slowly. The being inside took a sudden, gasping breath. His eyes opened. They were dark and intense, filled with confusion and then immediate alertness. He sat up fast, looking around at the Volreni team with an expression that made Yuna uncomfortable. It was the expression of someone searching for threats. "Where am I?" he demanded. His voice was rough and harsh. What year is it? Who are you? The universal translator struggled with his language for a moment before adapting. Yuna raised her hands in a peaceful gesture. Please remain calm. I am Yuna. We are Velrani. We found this place and accidentally triggered your awakening system. You have been asleep for a very long time. The being climbed out of his pod. He moved with careful precision, checking himself for injuries, testing his muscles. Yuna noticed scars on his arms and face. Old wounds from old battles. How long? He asked. Our estimates suggest approximately 10,000 standard years. The being froze. For a long moment, he simply stood there, processing this information. Yuna watched emotions cross his face. Shock, grief, and then something cold and hard. 10,000 years, he repeated quietly. Everyone I knew, everyone I served with, gone. I am sorry, Yuna said. Truly, but please, we need to understand. What is this place? Who are you? Why did your people seal themselves away like this? The being looked at her directly. His eyes held depths of experience that made Yuna feel very young despite her 40 years. My name is Tae-Won. I was a commander in the Earth Defense Force. We sealed ourselves away because we had no other choice. Earth? Dreth asked. We have no records of any planet by that name. Tae-Won laughed bitterly. You would not. We buried our name along with everything else. We did not want to be found. Why? Yuna pressed. Tae-Won looked past her at the rows of sleeping pods stretching into the distance. Billions of his people, still dreaming in the darkness. We were fighting a war, he said. A war against something that consumed entire worlds. They came from beyond the galaxy's edge. They stripped planets down to the core and moved on to the next. Every species that stood against them was destroyed. What were they called? Yuna asked. Tae-Won's face hardened. We called them the Harvesters. And we lost. We lost everything. But we refused to die completely. So we built this shell, sealed our world, and put ourselves to sleep. We hoped that if we waited long enough, the danger would pass. He turned to face Yuna directly. Tell me something. Are the Harvesters gone? Yuna exchanged a confused look with Dreth. We have never heard of any species by that name. No records in any archive mention them. Instead of relief, Tae-Won's expression grew more troubled. That is not possible. They destroyed hundreds of civilizations. They nearly ended all life in this galaxy. How can you have no memory of them? Dreth stepped forward nervously. Our histories go back 6,000 years. Before that, records are incomplete. There was a period we call the Silence, when many species nearly went extinct. But we do not know what caused it. Tae-Won stared at him. You forgot. You actually forgot. Forgot what? Yuna asked. War, Tae-Won said. You forgot what war is. You forgot what it means to fight for survival. You forgot the enemy that almost ended everything. He walked to a nearby console and began pressing buttons. Screens flickered to life, displaying star charts and data streams. I need to access your communication systems, he said. I need to know what has changed. I need to know if we are still in danger. Yuna moved to help him, but Dreth grabbed her arm. Wait, he whispered. We should contact the council first. This being speaks of war and enemies. Such things do not exist anymore. He could be dangerous. Yuna looked at Tae-Won, who was studying the star charts with desperate intensity. She saw the weight he carried, the burden of being the last one awake while his entire world slept. He is not dangerous to us, she said. He is afraid, and I think we should find out why. She approached the console and helped Tae-Won connect to the Velrani communication network. As data flowed across the screens, Taewon's face grew pale. "Your territories are vast," he said. "Thousands of worlds. Millions of ships. But I see no weapons. No defenses. No military of any kind. We have no need for such things," Dress said proudly. "The Galactic Council resolves all disputes through peaceful means." Taewon turned to face them. His expression held something that Yuna did not understand at first. Then she recognized it from old texts she had studied. It was pity. "You built a civilization on forgetting," he said quietly. "You erased the memory of what hunted you. You told yourselves that peace was natural, that violence was primitive, that the darkness would never return." He looked back at the screens showing the peaceful, defenseless galaxy. "But the darkness always returns. And when it does, you will have no idea how to survive it." Yuna felt a chill run through her. "Do you think the harvesters still exist?" Taewon did not answer immediately. He stared at the star charts for a long moment. "I think," he said finally, "that I need to speak with your council. And I think you need to prepare for the possibility that the war we ran from 10,000 years ago is not over." He turned and looked at the endless rows of sleeping pods. "We did not seal ourselves away to hide. We sealed ourselves away to wait, to survive, to wake up when we were needed again." His eyes met Yuna's. "I am awake now, and I need to know why." The capital world of the Velrani was called Seraph Prime. Taewon had never seen anything so beautiful or so vulnerable. Cities floated on platforms above endless oceans. Towers of crystal and light reached toward the sky. Gardens hung from every surface, filled with flowers that glowed in soft colors. Millions of Velrani walked the streets below, their skin shimmering with peaceful blue light. None of them carried weapons. None of them looked afraid. None of them understood what was coming. Taewon stood before the Galactic Council in a chamber made of pure white stone. 12 species had sent representatives. They sat in a wide circle around him, studying him with curiosity and concern. He was the first human any living being had ever seen. Grand. Elder Morvith sat at the head of the council. He was ancient, even by Velrani standards. His glow had faded to a soft silver, and his eyes held the weight of centuries. He was the oldest living being in known space. "You claim to be from a world that sealed itself away 10,000 years ago," Morvith said. His voice was gentle but firm. "You speak of wars and enemies that no record mentions. You must understand our difficulty in accepting these claims." "I understand," Taewon replied. "That is why I asked you to wake another of my people. Someone who can explain our history better than I can." The doors to the chamber opened. A woman walked in, escorted by Velrani guards. She was smaller than Taewon, but carried herself with quiet confidence. Her name was Hana, and in the old days, she had been one of Earth's finest diplomats. She had also been one of the architects of humanity's hibernation plan. Hana bowed respectfully to the council. "Thank you for awakening me. I know you have many questions." "We have one question," said a representative from the Keth species. He was tall and thin, with skin like polished wood. "Why should we believe anything you say?" Hannah smiled sadly. "Because if we wanted to deceive you, we would have made up a better story. The truth is much worse than any lie we could invent." She moved to the center of the chamber and activated a holographic display. Star charts appeared in the air around her. 10,000 years ago, this galaxy was dying. The display showed the galaxy as it once was. Thousands of worlds glowed with life. But at the edges, darkness crept inward like a spreading disease. "They came from beyond the rim," Hana continued. "We called them the harvesters because that is what they did. They harvested worlds. They stripped planets of all resources, all life, all value. Then they moved on. Images appeared. Vast ships the size of moons, machines that tore apart planets, weapons that burned entire systems to ash. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Several looked away from the images. Every species that fought them was destroyed, Hana said. The Talori, the Vassan, the Crimson Fleets. Names that meant something once. Now they are dust. How did you survive? Grand Elder Morvith asked quietly. Hana's expression grew heavy. We almost did not. Earth's population was 12 billion when the harvesters reached us. By the end of the first year, we were down to 3 billion. By the end of the second year, 1 billion. She paused to steady herself. Even after 10,000 years of sleep, the memories still hurt. But humans are stubborn. We refused to accept extinction. We fought with everything we had. Not to win, because winning was impossible. Just to buy time. Time for what? The Keth representative asked. Time to build the shell, Taewon answered. Time to develop hibernation technology that could last millennia. Time to put our entire remaining population into sleep and wait for the storm to pass. Another human entered the chamber. He was older than Taewon, with gray in his hair and lines of grief carved into his face. His name was Jae-Sung, and he had served as a military advisor during the war. We knew we could not defeat the harvesters, Jae-Sung said, but we hoped they would eventually leave. Move on to another galaxy. Exhaust their resources. Something. Anything. So we sealed our world and went to sleep, hoping to wake up to a better universe. Grand Elder Morvith rose from his seat. He moved slowly, his ancient body carrying him toward the humans with careful dignity. I must tell you something, he said. Something that my people have kept secret for thousands of years. The chamber fell silent. The harvesters were defeated, Morvith said. 8,000 years ago, a coalition of species finally destroyed them. It took generations. It cost countless lives. But in the end, the enemy fell. Taewon felt hope surge through him. They are gone? Truly gone? But Morvith's expression remained troubled. The war changed us, he continued. Every species that survived was broken by what we had experienced. We had seen too much death, too much destruction, too much suffering. We decided that war itself was the enemy. Violence itself was the disease. He turned to face the full council. So we made a choice. We modified ourselves. We altered our neural pathways, our instincts, our very nature. We removed the capacity for violence from our species. We erased the memories of the war. We built a civilization based on peace, and we buried everything that reminded us of what we once were. Hannah stared at him in disbelief. You engineered yourselves to forget? We engineered ourselves to be better, Morvith replied. And for 8,000 years, it worked. No wars, no conflicts, no violence of any kind. We created paradise. Paradise built on forgetting, Taewon said bitterly. What happens when the next threat comes? Morvith's glow flickered. That is why I'm telling you this now. Because I fear the next threat has already arrived. He gestured, and new images appeared in the holographic display. Long-range sensor readings from the galaxy's edge. Ships that matched no known design. Jae-Sung stepped forward to examine the data. His face went pale. These readings, he said slowly. The energy signatures. The formation patterns. He turned to face Taewon, and his eyes held horror. These are not new ships. The harvesters did not go extinct. They retreated. They have spent 8,000 years rebuilding. And now they are coming back. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions and demands. Several called for the readings to be verified. Others demanded that the humans be returned to their planet and resealed. But Grand Elder Morvith simply stood in silence, staring at the images of the approaching fleet. How many ships? Hannah asked quietly. Jae-sung checked the data again. Hundreds of thousands. Maybe more. They will reach the core worlds in months. Can your people fight them? Morvith asked. You still remember how to make war. You still have the capacity for violence. Can you save us? Taewon looked at Hannah and Jae-sung. They had 8 billion people sleeping in pods back on Earth. 8 billion survivors of a war that the galaxy had chosen to forget. We can try, Taewon said. But you need to understand something. We did not win last time. We survived. There is a difference. What do you need? Morvith asked. Wait, more of us, Jae-sung said. Soldiers, engineers, strategists. Anyone who can help. And give us access to your manufacturing capabilities. Your technology is far beyond what we had 10,000 years ago. With your resources and our knowledge, we might have a chance. Morvith nodded slowly. I will convince the council. But I must warn you, my people cannot help you fight. We physically cannot. The modifications we made to ourselves prevent us from engaging in violence. Even if we wanted to fight, our minds would not allow it. Hannah stepped forward. Then we will not ask you to fight. We will ask you to support us, to supply us, to give us the tools we need. Let humanity do what humanity has always done. And what is that? The Keth representative asked. Hannah looked at Taewon, then at Jae-sung. Both men carried the weight of memories that no other living being shared. Wars fought and lost. Friends buried and mourned. Hope maintained against impossible odds. We survive, she said simply. We endure. We refuse to give up, even when every logical analysis says we should. That is what makes us human. Grand Elder Morvith studied her for a long moment. Then he did something that no Varane had done in 8,000 years. He placed his hand on his chest and bowed his head, an ancient gesture of respect between warriors. Then wake your people, he said. Wake all of them if you must, because the storm that we thought we had escaped is returning, and you are the only ones who remember how to stand against it. Taewon looked out the window at the beautiful, peaceful city below. Millions of innocent beings who had never known fear, never known violence, never known what it meant to fight for survival. They had built paradise by forgetting. Now paradise was about to burn. We will need more than soldiers, he said quietly. We will need to teach your people something they erased from their own minds. What? Morvith asked. Taewon turned to face him. We will need to teach them what it means to be afraid. And then we will need to teach them how to be brave anyway. The debate in the council chamber lasted for 7 days. Half of the representatives wanted to wake all the humans immediately. They saw the approaching fleet on their sensors. They understood that death was coming. They begged the sleeping warriors to save them. The other half wanted to seal Earth again and pretend nothing had changed. They argued that provoking the harvesters might make things worse. Perhaps if everyone stayed quiet and peaceful, the enemy would pass them by. Hannah listened to both sides with growing frustration. You cannot negotiate with the harvesters, she told them again and again. They do not want territory or resources. They want everything. They will not stop until nothing is left. But the council members could not truly understand. Violence had been removed from their minds. War was an abstract concept, like mathematics or philosophy. They discussed it calmly, rationally, as if millions of lives were not hanging in the balance. In the end, Grand Elder Morvith made the decision himself. We will wake 50,000 humans, he announced. Soldiers, engineers, strategists. Enough to begin preparations. We will also grant them full access to our manufacturing facilities. It was a compromise. Not enough for the humans, too much for the fearful council members. But it was something. Tae-1 returned to Earth with Yuna and a team of Volrane engineers. The black shell that had protected their world for 10,000 years opened once more. This time, they knew exactly which pods to activate. Sora woke up fighting. She launched herself out of her pod before the lid was fully open, her hands already raised in defensive positions. It took 3 Velreni to calm her down, and she nearly broke one of their arms in the process. "Easy," Tae-1 said, holding his hands where she could see them. "We are safe." For now, Sora had been one of Earth's most brilliant tactical commanders. She had won battles that should have been impossible. She had held defensive lines when everyone else had given up. And she had never, not once, shown fear. Now she stood in the middle of her awakening chamber, surrounded by sleeping pods containing everyone she had ever loved. And she wept. 10,000 years, she whispered. "We actually did it. We survived. The war is not over," Tae-1 replied gently. "The harvesters are coming back." Sora's tears stopped. Her expression hardened. The warrior had returned. "Tell me everything." They woke Belram next. He was an engineer who specialized in weapons technology. During the war, he had designed systems that allowed humanity to punch far above their weight. Ships that should have been outmatched became deadly threats. Soldiers with inferior equipment became capable of standing against overwhelming force. Bahram was different from the other military personnel. He smiled easily and spoke softly. He preferred building things to destroying them. But he understood that sometimes you had to destroy to protect what you loved. "Your technology is incredible," he told the Volreni engineers who showed him their factories. Energy manipulation, material synthesis, manufacturing precision. "We had nothing like this. We have had 8,000 years of peaceful development," Yuna explained. "Without war, we focused all our efforts on improvement." Bahram nodded thoughtfully. "And in all that time you never built a single weapon?" "Why would we? We have no enemies. You do now." The training programs began immediately. Sora took charge of military instruction. She gathered Velrene volunteers who wanted to help defend their homes. She showed them basic combat techniques. She explained tactics and strategies. She tried to teach them how to fight. It was a disaster. The Volreni could not do it. Their modified minds physically rejected violence. When Sora asked them to throw a punch, their arms would not move. When she showed them how to fire a weapon, their fingers would not pull the trigger. When she set up combat simulations, they froze, unable to take any action that might harm another being. "It is not that they do not want to fight," Sora reported to Tae-1 and Hana. "They cannot fight. Something in their brains stops them." "The neural modifications," Hana said. "Grand Elder Morvith warned us about this." Sora slammed her fist against the table. "Then what good are they? We have 50,000 humans awake. The harvesters have hundreds of thousands of ships. The math does not work." "The other species might be different," Tae-1 suggested. "Not everyone modified themselves the same way. They tested representatives from each of the 12 council species. The results were nearly identical. Some could manage small acts of aggression, like shouting or making threatening gestures. None could engage in actual combat. 8,000 years of engineered peace had removed their ability to wage war. Meanwhile, Bahram worked with Velreni engineers to design new weapons. The galaxy's manufacturing capabilities were extraordinary. Within weeks, they had produced systems that would have taken Earth decades to develop. But weapons without soldiers were just expensive decorations. A scouting mission was sent to the galaxy's edge. They needed to know exactly what they were facing. The scout ship returned 3 weeks later, badly damaged. Only 2 of its crew had survived. The report was worse than anyone had feared. "The Harvester fleet is massive," the scout commander said. We counted over 200,000 warships. And they are not just attacking randomly. They are organized, coordinated. They have a command structure. They learned from their defeat, Jae-sung observed. They spent 8,000 years preparing for this. There is more, the commander continued. They know about the humans. They have been waiting for you to wake up. The room fell silent. How is that possible? Hannah asked. We intercepted communications. They mentioned the sleepers by name. They have been monitoring Earth's shell for thousands of years, waiting for it to open. When it did, they began their advance. Sora stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the Irani workers were building defensive platforms. Ships were being retrofitted with the new weapons. Everyone was working as hard as they could. It would not be enough. 8 billion people in those pods, she said quietly. If we woke all of them, trained all of them, armed all of them, would it be enough? Probably not, Taewon admitted. But it would give us a chance. The council will never approve it, Hana said. They are already terrified by the 50,000 we have awake. 8 billion would seem like an invasion. Then we need to change their minds. Fleet Commander Velis arrived the next day. She was the highest-ranking military officer in the Volrani forces, which meant she commanded ships that had never fired a weapon in anger. She was young for her position, eager to help, and completely unprepared for what she was about to learn. I want to understand, she told Sora. I want to know what my people have forgotten. Sora studied her carefully. Are you sure? Knowledge cannot be unlearned. Once you understand war, you will never see the universe the same way again. Velis nodded firmly. My people are in danger. I need to understand the danger to protect them. Sora began with history. She showed Velis recordings from the First War, images that had been preserved in Earth's archives. Ships being torn apart, planets being consumed, billions of beings dying in fire and darkness. Velis watched without looking away. Her glow flickered and dimmed, but she did not stop watching. Why did they do this? She asked finally. What do they want? They want to consume, Sora replied. That is all they are. Hunger given form. They do not hate you. They do not even acknowledge that you exist as thinking beings. You are just resources to be harvested. How do you fight something like that? Sora smiled grimly. You do not fight their nature. You fight their bodies. You destroy their ships. You kill their soldiers. You make the cost of attacking you so high that even endless hunger hesitates. But we cannot fight, Velis said. Our minds will not allow it. I know. Velis was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked the question that had been building since the conversation began. What happens when you fight? What does it feel like? Sora considered the question carefully. No one had ever asked her that before. It feels like being alive, she said finally. More alive than any other moment. Everything becomes clear. Every choice matters. Every second counts. You are completely present, completely focused, completely aware. She paused. It also feels terrible. You see death all around you. You cause death. You lose friends, family, everyone you love. The memories never leave. The screams never fade. You carry them forever. Velis absorbed this. Is it worth it? Sora looked down at the stars, where the Harvester fleet was approaching. Somewhere out there, hundreds of thousands of ships were heading toward this peaceful, beautiful, defenseless galaxy. Ask me again when this is over, she said. If any of us are still alive to answer. Yubai had spent her entire career studying the human mind. She understood trauma, grief, fear, and rage. She knew how people broke and how they healed. But she had never expected to wake up 10,000 years in the future and study aliens who had surgically removed their ability to feel. Violence, It is not just a behavioral modification, she explained to the council. They rewrote the fundamental architecture of their brains. The neural pathways that process aggressive responses have been completely eliminated. Can it be reversed? Grand Elder Morvith asked. EU Unbi hesitated. Theoretically, yes. The original pathways are not destroyed. They are suppressed. Under extreme circumstances, they could potentially be reactivated. What kind of circumstances? Extreme emotional trauma. Life-threatening situations where survival instincts override the suppression. Basically, they would need to be pushed so far beyond their normal experience that their minds break through the conditioning. The council members shifted uncomfortably. The idea of deliberately causing trauma to their own people was almost impossible for them to consider. There may be another option, Hannah said. We have been trying to contact a species called the Hollow Ones. They refused the neural modifications 8,000 years ago. They chose exile rather than forgetting. The Hollow Ones are dangerous, one of the council members protested. They are violent, unpredictable. They are the only other beings in this galaxy who remember how to fight. The mission to find the Hollow Ones took Hannah deep into uncharted space. Their exile had taken them far from the civilized systems, to a cluster of dying stars where no peaceful species would follow. She found them living on asteroid stations, scraping survival from the void. They were tall beings with rough gray skin and eyes that burned with constant alertness. They moved like predators, always watching, always ready. Their leader was a female called Ash Mother. She had no other name that outsiders were allowed to use. So the sleepers have awakened, Ash Mother said. We wondered when you would come. You knew about us? Hannah asked. We remember everything that the others chose to forget, including the humans who refused to die. Hannah explained the situation. The returning harvesters, the defenseless galaxy, the desperate need for allies who could actually fight. Ash Mother listened in silence. When Hannah finished, the Hollow One leader laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. You want us to save the species who exiled us? Who called us monsters because we would not cut the warrior from our souls? I want you to save yourselves, Hannah replied. The harvesters will not distinguish between modified and unmodified. They will consume everyone equally. Ash Mother's eyes narrowed. You speak well, human, but words are not enough. The others had 8,000 years to prepare for this moment. Instead, they built paradise and forgot that darkness exists. Why should we die for their foolishness? Because if they fall, you fall next. And because somewhere inside you, despite everything they did to you, you still care about this galaxy. You would not have survived this long if you did not have something worth fighting for. The silence stretched for a long moment. We will join your war, Ash Mother finally said. But not for them. For our own survival. And for the chance to prove that what we kept was worth keeping. Back on the front lines, the first skirmishes had begun. Harvester scout ships probed the outer colonies. Human-led defense forces engaged them with the new weapons Bahram had designed. The battles were brutal but successful. The harvesters were pushed back, but each victory came at a cost. Duyun was young. He had been a soldier for only 2 years when Earth went into hibernation. Now he was fighting in a war that felt both familiar and strange. The enemy was the same. The weapons were better. But the people he was protecting were unlike any he had known. During one engagement, a harvester raiding party broke through the defensive line. They reached a civilian transport carrying Volreni refugees. Duyun led his squad to intercept them. The fighting was close and vicious. Duyun killed 3 harvester soldiers with his bare hands when his weapon malfunctioned. By the time the battle ended, he was covered in blood that was not his own. A young Volreni female approached him afterward. She had been on the transport. She had watched the entire fight through a window. "Thank you," she said. "You saved us." Do-Yun nodded, too exhausted for words. The Volrani studied him carefully. Her glow was dim with fear, but something else flickered in her eyes. Curiosity. Maybe wonder. "What does it feel like?" she asked. "To do what you do?" Do-Yun thought about the question. He remembered the terror in the harvesters' eyes when they realized they were going to die. He remembered the sound of bones breaking under his fists. He remembered the moment when killing became as natural as breathing. "It feels necessary," he said finally. "Not good. Not right. Just necessary." The Volrani nodded slowly. "I am sorry we made you into this. I'm sorry we needed monsters to stay innocent." Do-Yun looked at her for a long moment. Monster? Was that what he was? What all humans were? "We are not monsters," he said quietly. "We are just people who remember what your ancestors chose to forget. We carry the weight so that others do not have to." "Is that not the same thing?" He had no answer for her. The War Council met daily now. Tae-Won, So-Ra, Jae-Sung, and the human commanders planned strategies while the Volrani provided resources. It was an awkward partnership. The humans made decisions that the aliens could not understand. The aliens provided support that they could not fully contribute to. Grand Elder Morvith attended every meeting. He said little, but he watched everything. One evening, after a particularly difficult session, he approached Tae-Won privately. "Your people carry a heavy burden," Morvith said. "We carry what we must. I have been thinking about what we did to ourselves 8,000 years ago. The modifications. The forgetting. We believed we were creating something better. A civilization beyond violence, beyond war, beyond suffering." "You created something fragile," Tae-Won replied. "Beautiful but fragile." Morvith nodded. "I see that now. We thought we were evolving. We were actually hiding. Hiding from our own nature. Hiding from the universe's cruelty. Hiding from the truth that peace must sometimes be defended with force. It is not too late to remember." Morvith's glow flickered with something that might have been hope. "Do you believe that? That we can reclaim what we cut away?" Tae-Won considered the question carefully. "I believe that your people made a choice. They chose forgetting over remembering, peace over vigilance, comfort over strength. They can make a different choice now. The modifications cannot simply be turned off." "Maybe not. But your psychologist, Unbai, says they can be overcome. Under extreme circumstances, the original pathways can reactivate. Your people chose to forget. Maybe now they can choose to remember." The Harvester fleet stopped advancing. The news spread through the defense forces with confusion. After weeks of constant pressure, the enemy had simply paused. Ships hung in space at the edge of the occupied systems, silent and waiting. Then the message came. It was broadcast on all frequencies, translated instantly by every communication system in the galaxy. A cold voice, mechanical and ancient, spoke words that chilled everyone who heard them. "We remember you. The sleepers. The ones who would not die. We have prepared for your awakening." Tae-Won listened to the message in the command center. Around him, human and Volrani officers exchanged worried glances. "They know us," So-Ra said. "They have been waiting for us." "For 10,000 years," Jae-Sung added. "They retreated, rebuilt, and studied us. They know how we fight." "They know how we fought 10,000 years ago," Tae-Won corrected. "We have changed. They may have prepared for warriors, but they have not prepared for what we have become." "What have we become?" So-Ra asked. Tae-Won looked around the room. Humans and aliens working together despite their differences. Engineers and soldiers. Scientists and commanders. A galaxy that had forgotten war, learning to remember. "Something new," he said. "Something they have never faced before." The harvester message continued. Your allies cannot save you. They have removed their fangs and claws. They are prey, nothing more. But you, sleepers, you we will enjoy destroying. This time, there will be no hibernation. This time, you will die knowing that everything you protected will be consumed after you fall. Duung stood at the back of the command center. He thought about the young Velrani who had called him a monster. He thought about the burden humans carried so that others could remain innocent. Maybe they were monsters. Maybe that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Let them come, he whispered. We have been sleeping for 10,000 years. We are well rested. The final battle began above Sereth Prime. The Harvester fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of locusts. Hundreds of thousands of ships, each one designed for a single purpose: destruction. They spread across the sky until the stars themselves seemed to disappear behind there. Shadow T-1 stood on the bridge of the command ship, watching the enemy approach. Beside him, Sora coordinated the defense forces. Jae-sung managed logistics. Bao-Ram monitored the weapon systems he had designed. Hana was not on the bridge. She had a different mission. The battle opened with fire from both sides. Human-designed weapons carved through harvester formations. But for every ship destroyed, 10 more took its place. The numbers were overwhelming. And then the harvesters revealed their surprise. New ships emerged from the fleet's core. They moved differently from the others. Faster, smarter, more aggressive. They targeted human vessels with surgical precision, anticipating tactics and countering strategies. Adapted soldiers, Sora realized. They bred these specifically to fight us. Every strategy we taught the Coalition, they have prepared for, Jae-sung confirmed. We are fighting our own tactics. The defensive line began to crumble. Human ships fell one by one. Velrani support vessels, unable to engage in combat themselves, could only watch as their protectors died. On the surface of Sereth Prime, Hana stood before the largest gathering in the planet's history. Millions of Velrani had assembled in the Great Plaza. More watched through broadcasts across the entire galaxy. I know you are afraid, she said. You should be. The enemy is here. They have come to consume everything you have built, everything you love, everything you are. She paused, looking out at the sea of glowing faces. My people have been fighting this enemy for 10,000 years. We have bled for you. We have died for you. And we will continue to fight until our last breath. But it is not enough. The crowd stirred with confusion. You chose to forget war, Hana continued. You modified your minds so that violence became impossible. You believed you were creating a better civilization. Maybe you were. But now that civilization is about to be destroyed, and the warriors you depend on cannot save you alone. She raised her voice. Today, I am asking you to make a different choice. Not to forget, but to remember. Not to hide from the darkness, but to face it. Your ancestors could fight. Deep inside you, that ability still exists. It is suppressed, not destroyed. And it can be reawakened. Grand Elder Morveth stepped forward beside her. His ancient face was heavy with the weight of the decision he had made. For 8,000 years, I have led our people in peace, he said. I told myself that we had evolved beyond violence. I was wrong. We had not evolved. We had hidden. We had made ourselves helpless and called it progress. He turned to face the crowd directly. Today, with my authority as Grand Elder, I am offering a choice to every citizen of the Velrani people. Our neural suppressors can be deactivated. Those who volunteer will regain the capacity for violence. They will be able to fight. They will also experience something our people have not known in millennia, the trauma of war. The plaza fell silent. I will not command anyone to do this, Morveth continued. It must be a choice freely made. But I will tell you what I have chosen." He closed his eyes. A moment later, his glow flickered and changed. Something shifted in his posture, in his expression. When he opened his eyes again, they held something that no living Velrani had ever seen. Fire. "I have deactivated my suppressors," he said. "For the first time in 8,000 years, I remember what my ancestors knew. I remember anger. I remember the will to fight. I remember what it means to protect what you love with mords." Across the plaza, across the planet, across the galaxy, Velrani citizens faced their own choice. Many were too afraid. Many could not imagine becoming something their culture had rejected for so long. The millions stepped forward. One by one, they deactivated their suppressors. One by one, they felt the ancient capacity for violence awaken inside them. One by one, they experienced fear and anger and determination for the first time. And then they went to war. The reinforcements arrived at the battle, just as the human lines were about to break. Velrani ships that had carried only supplies now carried weapons. Velrani citizens who had never known combat now stood ready to learn. They were clumsy. They were terrified. They made mistakes that trained soldiers would never make, but they fought. Fleet. Commander Velis led her ships directly into a harvester formation. Her first command was shaky, her hands trembling. But she gave it, and her crew obeyed, and enemy ships began to explode around her. "This is what it feels like," she whispered to herself. "This is what we forgot." The Hollow Ones arrived next. Ash Mother's exile fleet crashed into the enemy's flank with savage precision. They had never forgotten how to fight, and they demonstrated that knowledge with brutal efficiency. The battle turned. Not quickly, not easily. The harvesters still outnumbered them massively. Every minute brought new deaths, new losses, new grief that would never fully heal. But the tide had shifted. Taiwan led the strike team against the Harvester command vessel. It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. A small group of ships flying directly into the heart of the enemy fleet. "Are you sure about this?" Sora asked over the communication channel. "Someone has to cut off the head," Taiwan replied. "The harvesters are coordinated. They have a central intelligence directing everything. We destroy that, and the fleet falls into chaos. You will not survive." Taiwan smiled sadly. "I have been living on borrowed time for 10,000 years. Everything after the hibernation has been a gift. Let me use it for something that matters." The strike team punched through the enemy formation. Ships fell around Taiwan, each lost a friend he would never see again. But they kept pushing forward. The command vessel loomed ahead. Massive, ancient, the heart of the harvester consciousness. "I am targeting their core," Taiwan announced. "Sora, when this thing goes down, hit them with everything you have." "Understood." "Taiwan, it has been an honor." "The honor was mine." "Tell the others. Tell them we did not sleep in vain." His ship pierced the command vessel's shields. He armed every weapon Bahram had designed. He set the engines to overload, and then Taiwan, the last commander of Earth's old defense force, completed his final mission. The explosion was visible across the entire system. The command vessel shattered, and with it, the coordination that held the Harvester fleet together. Ships that had moved in perfect formation began crashing into each other. Weapons that had targeted with precision now fired randomly. Sora did not waste the opportunity. "All forces, engage. Everything you have. Leave nothing standing." The combined fleet, human and Velrani and Hollow One, swept through the confused enemy. It was not a battle anymore. It was a reckoning. 10,000 years of waiting, 8,000 years of hiding, all focused into a single moment of furious action. By the time it was over, the Harvester fleet was destroyed. Not retreating, not regrouping, destroyed. The cost was immense. 1 week later, Hana stood before a memorial on Sereth Prime. Thousands of names were carved into white stone. Human names, Velrani names, Hollow One names. All of them had died defending a galaxy that most of them had never known. Taiwan's name was at the top of the list. "We came here 10,000 years ago as refugees," Hana said to the gathered crowd. "We sealed ourselves away because we had no other choice. We slept while the galaxy healed, while species forgot, while peace became the only way of life anyone remembered." She paused, looking at the names of the dead. "When we woke up, we found a galaxy that had forgotten how to defend itself. We could have been angry. We could have resented being asked to fight again. Instead, we did what humans have always done. We stood up. We fought back. We protected those who could not protect themselves." She turned to face the Volrani, the Hollow Ones, and the representatives of every species who had joined the battle. But this was not a human victory. This was a victory for everyone who chose to remember. Everyone who faced their fears and found courage. Everyone who decided that some things are worth fighting for, even at terrible cost. Grand Elder Morvith stepped forward. His glow had not returned to its peaceful blue. It burned now with new colors, fierce and bright. "My people are changed," he said. "We cannot go back to what we were. The suppressors are gone. The forgetting is over. We will carry the memories of this war for the rest of our existence." He looked at Hana with something that might have been gratitude. "But we will also carry something else. The knowledge that we can face darkness and survive. The understanding that peace is not the absence of violence, but the choice to seek alternatives while remaining capable of defense. The wisdom that the sleepers carried for us while we hid." The memorial ceremony ended with a moment of silence. Across the galaxy, beings of every species paused to remember those who had fallen. In the weeks that followed, the humans faced their own choices. Many stayed awake to help rebuild. They shared their knowledge, their experience, their understanding of war and its consequences. They became teachers, advisors, partners in building a galaxy that would never forget again. Some chose to return to sleep. They had carried the weight long enough. They returned to their pods on Earth, dreaming of a peace that might finally be possible.